Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno episode 241, and this is show where I review all the comics I read this week in one show. So let's get started. I go least favorite to best pick of the week. So I had about 17 comics this week, so it's a little lower than usual, but like I said, let's get started. Number 17 for me this week was Betty and Veronica Vixens, issue 6. I didn't really dislike many of my books this week. This was just kind of lower, and I just don't love the artwork here. Just not a big fan of the style. Everything feels very light. I feel like it could be a little bit more detailed, and also just a story. I didn't really care about the villains here, but I still like the concept of this book. I like that Veronica's father is starting to learn a little bit more about these gangs going on and might want to move, so that brings a bit of drama. But overall, I gave this one 2.5 stars. I do feel like this series has been better, and again, I wish it had better artwork. Now, moving on to number 16, which is Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, issue 304. And this brings us into a future that's different. We get to see J. Jonah Jameson's not around. We have Peter, who is not Spider-Man anymore. Gwen's still alive, and that was interesting, but I'm just kind of tired of this whole story arc in general, and I wasn't invested enough in the world or what they had to do here to say, oh my god, I can't wait for the next issue. And another thing is the artwork. I just feel like it's not as good as it should be. And also it's weird, this whole paneling thing. There's one point where you had to twist the book, and I feel like it didn't really fit the narrative. I just thought that was strange paneling. But yeah, I just wish the artwork was a little bit more detailed for this book, and I think it would be a bit better. So that is a 2.5 star book for me, and that was number 16. So moving on to number 15 is the last issue of Batgirl in the Birds of Prey issue 22. And I feel like this book just kind of ran its course a while ago. And I liked the wrap up though. I liked that it just was more about the Birds of Prey and not just Batgirl. Really liked that last page with, what's his face? Gus, who makes his thing, or you know, his lair, more about the Birds of Prey and not just Batgirl, and what is the meaning of Oracle and her connection to the Birds of Prey. But the Calculator and Huntress's mom I was just kind of tired of and wasn't invested into that portion of the story arc. But I think the book ended well enough. But again, I think it's a book that kind of ran its course a little while ago. So probably after the whole Oracle reveal stuff is where I felt like it lost some speed. And also artwork kind of had a weird style for me. I felt like the facial expressions felt very small at times, so I gave this one 2.5 stars. And that was number 15, I believe. Yes. Moving on to number 14, which is Eternity Girl, issue 3. Just kind of a weird book. I definitely like the message of the book. I like this idea, or her view of death is very interesting. It's like, did she die? Did she not die? What does death mean? I love that type of stuff, but it's a little out there. It's a very out there book, and that's why I'm not fully invested into this one. I think it's only 5 issues anyways, but it's a very kind of weird book, so it really depends on your, you know, taste, I would say. And I think this one went into weird a little bit more than the stuff I really liked, which is digging deeper into the existential aspect of the book. So I gave this one 2.5 stars, and that was number 14. Moving on to number 13, which is Barrier, issue 2. I obviously been picking up this book, huge fan of Brian K. Vaughan's writing, and I like the concept of this book, but I also kind of wish there was like some sort of subtitles during the Spanish speaking parts of the issue. I like the aesthetic of it because I think it's so interesting that we're kind of, I guess if you don't speak Spanish, we're in the point of view of the girl where like where she doesn't understand what he's saying, and I kind of like that perspective change, so I like that, and also just making it authentic of having the character just speaking Spanish I think is really interesting. But because I don't speak Spanish, there's half of the issue where I'm just kind of relying on the visuals a bit more. But I do think it's a really interesting idea, and I kind of like the mesh of it all, especially just because of what the book's about. So that's why I gave this one 3 stars. I think it's a very interesting book, but it also kind of takes me out of it because I don't know what's going on fully in some of the other scenes because, you know, we don't have subtitles or anything. I think this story would work better in a TV format than a comic format. I think it would have, translated better, in my opinion. So I gave this one 3 stars. Definitely still going to follow it. Still interested in see where this goes. But that's why I couldn't give it as, give it higher than 3 stars. Alright, moving on to number 12, which is The Flash, issue 46. Gorgeous cover. I love this cover. I am picking up this physically for Flash Wars. See if I like Flash again and maybe jump on fully, but I read the annual and then the last issue. Last issue I really enjoyed too, and I was like, alright, let me get this physically. Flash Wars looks kind of cool. This issue building into Flash Wars, I don't think it was as good as the last issue. I think the artwork, definitely not my style of art. This is kind of how they open the series, and I feel like it's a little bit too dark for the Flash. Just not a big fan of the art style, but I like the Wally stuff. I like that we're digging deeper into his flashes. I liked his relationship with Iris. My favorite part definitely being Barry talking to Alfred and Barry looking for advice from Bruce, saying, you know, how does he fight crime with his family. I thought was really interesting, and definitely I think made this book worth reading because of it. Didn't really quite care about the Reverse Flash stuff in this issue, but hopefully I will feel more invested as hopefully the art's better in the next arc, and just, you know, I'll feel more invested in the next issue. So overall I gave this 3 stars, and still excited for Flash War though, but I did like the annual and the last issue a little bit better. Moving on to number 11, I guess this is going to be a little lower than other people, but I gave this to Justice League No Justice, issue 1. I obviously will be picking up all 5 issues. I love Francis Manapul's artwork, definitely the best aspect of this book, but just like the DC Nation free comic book, not really free, 25-cent comic book, I felt like this was a bit too scattered. I wish it was more focused, and the thing that really did get me though was the Brainiac stuff. I like that, but I just felt like there was too many players on the board here that I didn't really get the character interactions I wanted with this one. So overall I gave this 3 stars. Not bad. There's definitely an interesting setup, and if you like big monster stuff, you'll enjoy this. It's very space oriented, which I'm not fully invested in usually, so we'll see how that goes, but you know, has some connections to metal, which is interesting if you like that event. But overall, I gave it, oh, there's only 4 issues. I thought it was 5. But anyways, I gave this one 3 stars. Not fully invested in this yet, but I like the cliffhanger and I love the artwork. So that was number, let's see, that was number 11. Moving on to number 10. Which is Wonder Woman, issue 46. I like this arc a little bit better than the whole Darkseid stuff because we've been getting that for so long. I like that we go back to the roots once again to Greg Rucka's run, which I really enjoyed, and we get to see Cheetah come back. But the thing is, I compare it to Rucka's run, and I'm like, oh, I don't like this story as much as I did the Rucka story. So that's why it was kind of hard for me to get into. But I like the artwork here, as always, and I liked seeing, again, Cheetah and Kale again. I like their characters, so I gave it 3 stars. Kind of in the middle for me, a little forgettable at the same time, but still kind of cool to get that call back. Moving on to number 9. Also might be a little lower compared to other people, but Venom, issue 1. And I will say I enjoyed this a lot more than I expected. Venom, I have a love-hate relationship with. Not hate, that's strong. But I like him as a villain in Spider-Man, but anytime I pick up his solo series, it's never for me, and it seems like, you know, my friends, when they pick it up, it also just, you know, goes down in quality, so we call it, I get venomed because of it. Anytime I pick it up, the book is not as good as it was, so, but I really like, going back to the actual topic of this, I did like this issue because I was surprised by the quality of it. I really liked the storytelling aspect, and going into Eddie Brock's head, and seeing the medicine he's taking, and really seeing the relationship within his head with the Venom, I thought was the most interesting thing here. Also, Stegman's artwork is just gorgeous, and probably some of the best artwork we've seen scene of Venom, and it brings back that 90s style, but still has this nice modern tone to it. I really love the artwork here. The actual Venom connection, where we learn a little bit more about the Venom, is where I wasn't as invested in, but I'm still curious about. So overall, I gave this 3.5 stars. Definitely gave me enough for the next issue, but I think if I was a hardcore solo Venom fan, I would but like this issue more than I did. It was kind of in the middle for me. So Venom issue 1 gets 3.5 stars. Moving on to the next issue, which is number 8. I thought this was going to be a little higher, but still a really fun issue, and that is Hunt for Wolverine, the Adamantium Agenda, issue 1. And I had a fun time with this issue because it kind of felt like old school Avengers, and I love Tom Taylor's writing, so some of the interactions between Jessica and Spider-Man especially I really liked. But I also really liked the cliffhanger where we get to find out that they go to this like kind of, you know, sale type thing, auction, and they're selling Danielle's, their kids' DNA, and I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool ending. Still wanted to see a little bit more of the connection of Wolverine himself today. Like, I know it's them, you know, helping to find Wolverine, but it doesn't seem like any of the stories are progressing, and I still don't know what direction they're taking with Wolverine, but at least we got to see the past with Wolverine and why they're invested into this more than I felt like the Daredevil book did. Artwork is good too. I enjoy the art style. It's solid. There were times where I feel like when the faces were close, I wanted even more detail in the facial expressions, but overall, I thought it was a good book. And if you like the old school Avengers, I think, or, you know, just especially New Avengers, I would say. New Avengers, Brian Michael Bendis stuff. I think you'll enjoy this. I really like Taylor's voice and his combination of the different voices here. So I gave this 3.5 stars, and definitely gave me enough for me to want to get the next issue. Alright, moving on to number 7, which is Sideways, issue 4, which I just have fun with. I do feel like some of the stories are a bit generic, and we've seen them a billion times, but there's still a certain fun element because of that. You know, it's Ernie and our main character just figuring out what it means to be a hero. He's a little cocky, but then he realizes he's not as strong as he thinks he is. But the most interesting aspect is his mother, because she works for like the government, and it looks like her boss knows about her son, and that's kind of interesting. So overall, I gave it 3.5 stars. Is it blowing my mind? No, but is it a fun read every month? Totally. So again, 3.5 stars for me, and even the artwork I feel like is a lot of fun, fits the book, very bright, which it needs to be. So if you like teen books, definitely check this one out. 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 6, which is Batman White Knight, issue 8, the finale of this series, which I totally recommend if you're a Batman fan. It puts everything you know about the Batman mythos on its head, but still stays very loyal to the Batman mythos at the same time. And I will say this was a bit more action-driven than I expected. I expected a bit more emotion, but we got that in the end, especially when we learned that Harley Quinn is the one who cured Joker. I thought that was really cool, that she's kind of like the hero of this story in a way, and I love her relationship with Batman here. And then, you know, Bruce reading Alfred's letter to the Bat family was really good, and then the ending where I'm like, oh my god, I want more, where Bruce really reveals that he's Batman to Commissioner Gordon, and it doesn't look like Commissioner Gordon's looking at him in the face, so we'll have to see if we'll ever get a continuation of that. But I thought that was a cool way to end it, and totally would want another volume of Batman White Knight. I mean, the artwork was so gritty and perfect for this series, and it was just really fun, so definitely pick this one up. Definitely a very enjoyable Batman series, and I gave that 4 stars, and I thought it was a very solid finale. Moving on to number 5, which is Betrothed, issue 3. Another really fun book, which mixes science and magic and teenage romance, and it's so much fun. And the way they mix it is just a perfect balance of science and magic, and, you know, our main characters not knowing what's going on and really being teenagers, being thrusted into this new life and in adulthood. I feel like it could really be an analogy for that, or, you know, yeah, an analogy for it. So, really like that. And it's fun. The artwork's really cool. I like that the friends are being thrown into it. And if you like teen stories, definitely pick this one up. I think it's something different, but also something very familiar. So, I gave that one 4 stars, and that is number 5. So, moving on to number 4, which is Outcast, issue 35. Really fun ride, and we get to see a lot of the characters being used here. We get to see that Megan is saved, but only for the priest's son to get everyone caught by the police, and Kyle's ready to go up against them, and you know, them realizing a little bit more about the power of the Outcast is interesting. I really like seeing Kyle and his wife, you know, building a better relationship for themselves. Very Walking Dead in a lot of ways, the relationships, but I feel like that's okay. So I gave this a solid 4 stars. Love the artwork so much, as always. It's the best aspect of this book a lot of the times. And I mean, I like the story, but the art is just so haunting, and I love the small close-ups they usually do for intense moments. It's a really cool book. So gave that 4 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, I've been really surprised by this book because I've never seen the show and I'm still really enjoying it, and that is Xena, issue 4. I like Gabrielle and Xena's relationship. I think they're cool, and I really like the story going around it. You know, Gabrielle is in trouble. She gets caught on this like slave boat, and she reconnects with her sister, and Xena's gonna have to save the day. And there's just a lot of fun interaction, and the artwork is so gorgeous. I love the facial expressions so much. I love Gabrielle, especially just her spunk in this book. So I gotta give this 4 stars. Just artwork, writing, it's just a fun ride, even if you've never seen Xena and just kind of know the basics of the character. Now moving on to number 2, glad to see this so high, and that is Detective Comics issue 980. I won't say this is a perfect book, because I do think it's a little slow in the beginning with Kate's story and the whole Brother Eye, Tim future thing. But I love Batgirl stuff. I was jumping over the moon with the Stephanie and Cassandra stuff, where Batman doesn't trust Stephanie, which is definitely something that's in this series and in previous series, and Stephanie kind of proves herself here. She's like, hey, I could control these drones, and I'm as smart as Tim, or, you know, at least can try to be as smart as him. And then she finds out that she was Batgirl in a previous timeline, and then Cassandra finds out she was Batgirl, and it was a really great moment. And then I love Stephanie in the end, because even though I feel like it was kind of in and out her voice here, where I'm like, I don't know if Stephanie would say that. I guess this Stephanie would. But in the end, where she's like, haha, you just gave me the courage to do all this, that was Stephanie, you know. What Stephanie's character is always, you think that she's gonna fail, but she always prevails, you know? She's the character that is the underdog. She's always the underdog, and villains and heroes always see her as lower, and then she always proves herself, and that's her character. And it's cool to see that they learn that they're more part of the Bat family than they are now, because they feel like outsiders, and I thought that was really cool. I enjoyed it. As a Batgirl fan, a huge Batgirl fan, and fan of both Cassandra and Stephanie, and especially Stephanie, I really enjoyed that, and hope it changes Cassandra and Stephanie for the better as this arc comes to a close and Tynion leaves Detective Comics. And I love this cover too, where you actually get to see the Batgirls in the background with the silhouettes. So I gave that 4 stars. I thought it was definitely a good book, and if you're a Steph and Cassandra fan, definitely pick that one up. Moving on to number 1, which is the obvious number 1, because it's always number 1, and I love this book, and it's Runaways issue 9. I love this book. Like I said, it always has a home run for me. I'm never disappointed with this. And with this issue, we get to see, especially Molly and I guess Julie is really and I guess Chase as well, are the main characters here, where Chase is dealing with the Doom bots. You find out it wasn't actually Dr. Doom, and this Doom bot believes he's Dr. Doom, and it's such a fun interaction. And them saying, we're gonna fix you, Victor, and Victor's kind of saying, I don't need to be fixed, I don't mind being who I am and not having a body, which I thought was a really interesting commentary there, really interesting thought that I'm interested to see. I said interesting a lot. See where it goes. I'm curious. So and then also the Molly stuff. You know, Molly really struggling who am I? You know, I think any 13-year-old would feel that way. Do I want to be an adult? I'm kind of in the middle here. Do I still want to be a kid? And Molly especially, because she's always been the kid. That's like her thing. And her friend says it's not enough. And if you want to be my friend, eat the stupid cupcake. And Molly's really struggling with it, especially after the conversation she has. She sees that Carolina is really struggling with her relationships, and Chase is just like, you're a hedgehog with 10, I think it was like hats or something. And then Julie, she's struggling a lot. She just wants to talk to her girlfriend, and Carolina is always being flaky, and Julie is really upset by the end. She's like, I just want to talk to her, and she keeps bailing on me, and then she eats the cupcake, and then the ending is that, it's so poetic because it's her becoming a kid again, and I think we'll probably see them revert it in the next issue or a couple issues from now. I have a feeling Nico will be involved there, but it's poetic because what is the Power Pack? It's the characters who were the youngest superheroes. That's who Julie was always was. And then in the past couple of years, at least in the main Marvel continuity, we got to see those youngest superheroes grow up. And that was, Julie's journey. And really like that twist in the end is like, what did you do to me? And then, her talking to Molly in the previous issues, like, yeah, I kind of wish we could go back to those times. And I think all the characters who say in this issue is like, oh, I wish I didn't have a job. I wish that relationships weren't so complicated. They don't actually mean that. They're just frustrated. Like Carolina, I don't think she wants just a friendship with Julie, or with anybody, but she's frustrated. She's like, relationships are complicated, and it's kind of the right moment. We all want to be kids sometimes, but you realize, being an adult has its positives too. And I think that's really what this whole arc's about as well. So I think Julie's going to realize that in the next issue a lot. But I love that. I thought it was a really cool, smart twist. And we'll see where Julie and Carolina's relationship goes. I don't see it going positively after this, but we'll see what type of conversation that they end up having. But I really liked that you kind of saw both sides with them too. You understood where Julie was coming from, you understood where Carolina was coming from, which makes an interesting, dramatic relationship storyline. And then you had the fun. You had the Doombots, you had more drama with Molly. It was just a really well-balanced issue with amazing artwork with Chris Anka. His facial expressions are some of the best, and his character designs are wonderful. So really enjoyed this issue. 4.5 stars, and of course my pick of the week. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also, description below, there are links to my comic book, Like Father, Like Daughter. And don't forget to like the Facebook page of Like Father, Like Daughter. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.